Joining us from Austin, Texas, the affiliate there, KEYE, is Hema Muller. She is an anchor there. Hema, this new evidence that his lawyers are referring to, what is that new evidence?
There are several pieces of new evidence in this case. It actually goes all the way back to 1996 for the murder of Stacey Stites. Stacey was 19 years old at the time when she was found raped and strangled. Rodney Reed was arrested a year later when his DNA was connected to this case because his DNA was found inside of Stacey. Now, initially at the time, he said that he didn't know Stacey, but later his lawyers and Rodney did say that they had been having a consensual affair and had had consensual sex the day before she was murdered, so that explained the DNA there. But Rodney has long maintained his innocence in this case. That jury did convict him of murder and sentence him to death in 1998. Now, just here in the last few weeks, his lawyers are working with the Innocence Project, and they filed new court papers saying that there are multiple new pieces of evidence in this case. One of the biggest ones is they say Stacey's fiance at the time, he was a former police officer who was actually serving jail time, a 10-year sentence for kidnapping and sexual assault while he was on duty. An inmate who was in jail with him says that that man, Jimmy Fennell, confessed to Stacey's murder, saying that he did not like that she was having an affair with a black man. So that's one piece of new evidence. Another piece is another witness coming forward, a former sheriff's deputy, saying that Fennell actually at Stacey's funeral looked at her body and said she got what she deserved. And another key piece here is the murder weapon. Police believe that Stacey's own belt was used to kill her, and that piece of evidence was never tested for DNA. So they want all of this to be considered, and they want the governor to halt this execution so they can look into all of this.
And as I understand it, Rodney Reed and his attorneys, they don't want a pardon. They want a new trial altogether.
Exactly. What they want is for Governor Greg Abbott to halt this execution for 30 days so all of this new evidence can be considered. They also would like the Texas Board of Parole to actually consider commuting the sentence. But really what they want is just for them to stop, take a step back, and look at all of this new evidence.
All right, Hema, thank you. Let me bring in Charles Coleman Jr. He's a civil rights attorney. Thank you, Hema. Charles, there's so many things to unpack here. Thank you for being here with us. You are one of the best in the business. But let me go to the DNA here. Sure. The DNA of Mr. Reed was found in the victim.
Sure.
He later says that they had a consensual relationship. Is that... help us process this. I did a case in Florida where a woman was killed by a state trooper, and his excuse was, oh, I did not do this to her. It was consensual. She ended up dead. When one person lives and one person is dead, there's only one person's side here that we get to hear. But his DNA was there. Is there any proof that they had a relationship?
So when we're talking about the DNA in a case like this, what it comes down to is timing, and a question of timing. And what we have with the case of Mr. Reed is, for whatever we've seen, all of the forensic scientists have now said that in terms of the time of death and then the time that the semen was recovered, that it was virtually impossible that it could have been Mr. Reed who was the person who actually killed her. And so it has come out throughout additional testing and then additional statements from forensic specialists that the DNA testing in terms of the timing,
okay,
confirms that there was actually a consensual sexual relationship between the victim and Mr. Reed.
And here in this case, you know, we're looking at a man who's facing the death penalty here. Why would it be a complicating factor for the state simply to say, fine, another trial? We'd rather give you another trial than execute someone who did not commit the crime. What's 30 days?
So you raise a great question. I think that from the prosecutor's standpoint, their argument is probably going to be that many of the confessions that we're talking about are hearsay and subject to hearsay objections. And so there's a question as to how you would even get those in terms of if a new trial was granted. Regarding the DNA evidence, Tamron, for me, the biggest issue is that this murder weapon, this belt, was never tested. So we could easily find that Fennell's, that the boyfriend's DNA was on this belt, and that could ultimately exonerate Mr. Reed. So from my perspective, that is the real key to moving this case forward and hopefully getting Mr. Reed a new trial.